Hello students and welcome to Standard 9 Geography study sessions. We are studying lesson number 2, that is endogenetic movements from last week. In the last week, that is in the last video, in the previous video, we have seen the first part of this lesson and now we'll see the next part of this lesson. Fine. So endogenetic movements. Endogenetic movements, we have seen the meaning of this word. Endo means internal, genetic means generated. Internally generated movements which all are there always active under the surface of the earth, and due to these movements some events or some things happen, and which all are they will see in detail. In today's session we are going to study the classification of endogenetic movements based on various elements. You can see here a chart is shown table. In this table, classification of internal movements, and what are the bases? Bases are velocity, direction and landforms, and based on these three elements the movements are classified accordingly. Fine. So we'll try to understand the concept with the help of tables and diagrams or figures. Everything in the nature occurs due to some or the other reason. In the nature, every event has some specific reason behind that. Nothing happens unnecessarily or without any reason. We must remember this thing in the study of geography. Now, we know that various natural events occur on the earth from time to time. Examples are floods, storms, snowfall, extreme rainfall, etc. These things happen on the surface of the earth, above the surface of the earth. In the same way, some movements below the earth's surface may cause some natural events, and these natural events are volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. When the natural events or calamities are dangerous for the life on the earth, they are called as disasters. Fine. So endogenetic movements, we have seen the introduction of this concept in the previous video. Now let's see the classification of these internal movements. Fine. Here one table is shown. Before that, here are some diagrams which are shown in our textbook, and which all are they we'll study in deep and detail now. Fine. So here open page number 11 of your textbook and let's see what all things are given in this chapter. Fine. The classification of endogenetic movements, internal movements. Fine. Based on velocity. Fine. Velocity means what? The speed at which something moves in a particular direction. Velocity means what? The speed at which something moves in a particular direction. Fine. So based on velocity, based on the speed of the movements are again categorized under two parts. And which are these two types? First is slow movements and second is sudden movements. Slow movements which occur continuously and consistently above the surface of the earth, even under the surface of the earth. Fine. These are like formation of mountains and continents. Now you must remember one thing, that these mountains and continents are not formed due to the upper surface movement. Please students, do remember this thing. Something is happening downwards under the surface, and due to that mountains and continents are formed. Sudden movements. Now these movements, slow movements, do not take place in 1 or 2 weeks or 1 year or like that. It happens in thousands of years. It takes thousands of years to form a mountain or continent, so millions of years almost. Fine. And within few days we just destroy the mountains. Nowadays, can you see mountains around you? No, they are disappearing, unfortunately. So we must remember that it takes thousands of years to form a single mountain. Fine. And based on again the speed, some movements are sudden, immediately they occur in the form of events. And which are these events? Earthquakes and volcanoes. They take place within some minutes or even seconds sometimes. So they are quick movements, sudden movements. Fine. And one type is slow movements. Fine. So slow movements and sudden movements are categorized under velocity, that is speed of the movement, speed at which something moves. Now secondly, it is direction, based on direction of the movements. Which direction, left or right, or what is it? Let's see. Based on direction, the movements are categorized under horizontal movements and vertical in the sense upward and downward, both sides movements. So horizontal and vertical words are very familiar to you. You are studying in maths. Horizontal means straight, vertical means upward and downward movements. And again the third category is landforms. Which landforms take place? In this type, continents are built, creating continents, plateaus and highlands. Continent building movements. Continents means what? Large land masses. We can say khanda in Marathi. Khanda. Now plateaus. Plateaus means what? Plains or pathar, what it is called in Marathi. And highlands. Highlands means mountainous plateau. On the upper surface of the mountains, upper part of the mountains, on the top of the mountains where there are plains, where there are plateaus, that is called highland. Fine. So these are the third part of classification. And another is mountain building. Mountains are built, and how they are built we are going to see in deep now. Under this category, faulting and folding. Folds are formed one upon another. Mountains are folded, not like we fold our clothes, but folds are formed. And faulting means what? Fracture or breakage. Breaking. The rocks, which are two huge rocks, they break down and these faults form. So what are these all things? Let's see one by one. These slow movements we are going to study in this part. In the next part, in the next video, next week, we'll study the sudden movements, that is earthquakes and volcanoes. Fine students. Now see, first category is slow movements. Let's know more with the help of the figure here. Here one figure is shown. Just see this figure, Earth's movements and their effects. What is this figure about? Earth's movements and their effects. So what is given in this figure? Let's see. Here two things happen. First is pressure and second is tension. What is mean by pressure? Pressure means dabav or daab dene. Dabav or daab. And tension means what? Tanav or tanane, khechne, we stretch na. That is tension. Fine. Now the direction of wave movements are shown here. If the waves are moving towards each other, do remember this thing, very carefully listen. If the waves are moving towards each other, look at the arrows, they are moving towards each other, pressure is formed here. Fine. And if the waves are moving away from each other, look at the arrows here carefully. They are going away from each other. The waves are moving away from each other. Here tension is created. Tension means what? Tanav. Now see, when we put pressure on something, folds or faults are formed. And when we stretch something, when we tense something, what happens? It breaks. There is one proverb in Marathi, ati ताणल्यावर तुटते. Same way, breakages do occur here. Now what is the effect of that on hard rocks and soft rocks? Some rocks are very hard and some are very soft. on the hard rocks. You can see here in this picture, fault, that is fold, is created. Mountains are folded upon one another. Basically mountains means what? They are rocks, huge rocks. Fine. And when pressure increases from internal pressure, that is not external, that is internal pressure down the earth's surface, and when this pressure increases on the upper side, what happens? Hard rocks do fold, they fold here, and soft rocks, they fold in this type. Can you see here? This type. And hard rocks fold this type. Now what happens of tension? Due to tension, hard rocks break into pieces and there is slight gap between them. See here. Okay. And if there are soft rocks, this huge area is created, the rocks go away from each other and one plane, fault plane is created due to that. Fine. This we can see here in the rift valleys. What is that? We'll see ahead. Fine. So whenever due to the increased pressure or tension, rocks, what do? They come one upon another, and hard rocks go one upon another due to the pressure, and due to the tension, faults are created. Slight breakage is created over there. And in soft rocks, direct folds are formed here, just like this. Folds are formed and fault plane is formed here in the soft rocks. Fine. Now with the help of one activity, let's see what activity is given here to you. Fine. Everybody is going to try this activity at home. What is said here? Take a 30 centimeter long paper strip. Fine. Just like this, shown in the picture here. Can you see here one picture? Wait 1 minute. Here. This way, you have to take one strip. Place your hands on both the ends of the strip. Just like this. Compress that. Fine. Place your hands on both the ends of the strip. Move both the hands towards each other in this direction in which the arrows are shown. Just look at the arrows over there. See here. Again, see here. Look at the position of the arrows direction. How will you pressurize that strip? How will you put pressure on the strip? Move both the hands towards each other. Moving both the hands towards each other, giving pressure on the strip. And observe what happens to the strip. Here you can see what has happened in this picture. A fold is formed. Can you see the fold here? Fine. Now what happens here? Due to the compression. Compression means what? Made smaller or more due to pressing together. The best example of compression is sponge. If we compress, it becomes small and comes together. If we release that compression, it comes back again in its original position. Now what happens here due to this type of movement? In activity 1, the strip was moved by placing hands on both ends. We have done this. The work performed on the strip at that time is called compression. What is it called as? Compression. Pressure was given on the center of the strip from both the ends. We had given pressure from both the ends coming towards each other. Towards in this direction of the arrows. See here, arrows. How you should put pressure on that? This way. Then only folds are formed. Fine. So as a result, the strip moves and folds are formed. Look at this. Fine. The strip moves and folds are formed. Similarly, due to pressure on the earth's crust. Suppose this is earth's crust down here between your hands, and some movements are going downside under. that surface, and due to that pressure, what happens here? Movements are generated and folds are formed. That is the effect of the internal movements. It's not of external movements. Do remember this thing. Fine. Now next part is fold mountains. Fine. We know about the tremendous energy below the surface. We have seen in the last video how much energy is there under the surface of the earth. Fine. So below the surface there is always tremendous energy active. Okay. This energy is transferred from the interior of the earth. How is it transferred? From the interior part of the earth, this energy is transferred. Okay. And because of these energy waves and pressure working towards each other and in horizontal direction, the layers of the soft rocks form folds, just like that which we have seen earlier in the activity. If the pressure is very high, suppose the pressure from underside that is very high, large scale folds are formed. Okay, and their complexity increases. What is mean by complexity? It becomes very much complex, and this complexity increases due to the high pressure. Fine. As a result, the surface of the earth gets uplifted and fold mountains are formed. See here in this picture, this diagram, this figure, this part is uplifted, वर उचलला जातो. What happens here? It is lifted upside and hence fold mountains are formed. The best examples of fold mountains are the Himalayas, then Himalayas are in India, then Alps are in Europe, Rockies which are in North America, and Andes which are in South America. So Himalayas, the Aravallis again in India, the Rockies, North America, the Andes, South America, and Alps, they are in Europe. Mountain ranges, these mountain ranges are formed due to what? Due to this high pressure, and the surface of the earth has been lifted, uplifted, and fold mountains are formed. Fine. These are the fold mountains, folded part of a mountain. Can you see clearly seen here? Folds are formed. How the folds are formed? What is the reason behind that? We have seen right now. Now image of the Himalayas and adjacent area is shown here. There are also folds. You can see clearly in this picture. Fine. Now going to the next concept, and that is block mountains and rift valleys. We will see with the help of one activity. Again one activity is given here. Let's see what is that activity. Fine. Take a long strip of thin paper. Fine. Hold one end of the paper in your right hand, hold the other in your left hand. Pull both the ends away from each other. If something is pulled beyond the limits, what happens? It breaks. We know the rule of that. It breaks up, and so when you put tension, that is you stretch, you pull the thing, something, it might be anything. Even the relations also break if you tense too much. Fine, this is apart, but still pull both the ends away from each other and observe what happens to the paper strip. Here clearly is seen that the paper strip is torn. It has been broken. Fine. Now what happens here? Two things happen due to such faults. First is block mountains and second is rift valleys. Fine. Now see what are block mountains. Fine. In activity 2, tension is created when you pull both the ends away from each other. We know that. Similarly, when movements occur in opposite direction to each other, tension is generated and faults are formed in the earth's crust. Whenever under the surface of the earth there is energy tremendous, we know. Movements are there, and due to these movements, energy is just released outside, breaking the crust of the earth. These all things, though they are basic, we know these things. Now what happens when movements occur in opposite direction? Look at the direction of the arrows here. Tension is generated, created, formed, and due to this tension, faults are formed in the earth's crust. Breakages are formed. The rocks or the mountains, whichever are there, they are broken due to these internal movements which create tension, which are opposite direction. They are away from each other. When the movements go away from each other, tension is created. It is stretched the surface and fractures are formed. Breakages are formed. Now what is the concept of block mountains? Because of internal movements, horizontal waves moving away from each other are formed. We have seen this. Because of internal movements, what happens? Horizontal waves, straight waves, moving away from each other are formed. Fine. This causes tension on the layers of rocks. Yes. This leads to formation of fractures in the rocks. We have seen just now. These are known as faults. What is meant by faults? Just see here again. Faults means what? Because of internal movements, horizontal waves moving away from each other are formed, and this causes tension on the layers of rocks. And this leads to formation of fractures in the rocks, and these are known as faults. Similarly, waves coming towards each other in hard rocks also form faults due to compression. If you compress something too much, high pressure, that also what happens? Faults are formed in the rocks. When a part of the earth's crust in between two parallel faults is lifted, it looks like a block. Same way here. Can you see some space down over there? Here. Okay. So whenever what happens here, a part of the earth's crust layer in between two parallel faults, there are two parallel faults. One is due to the waves which are coming towards each other, and one is due to the waves which are going away from each other. And due to these two parallel faults, what happens? The earth's crust is lifted upside, and that it looks like a block. Mountains also are formed in the same way with the same process, and these types of mountains are called block mountains. Such a landform is known as a block mountain. वरती उचलला जातो तो भाग. दोन पॅरलल फॉल्ट्सच्या मुळे काय होतं, तो ब्लॉक जो आहे तो कंप्लीट ब्लॉक वरती उचलला जातो, अँड इट लुक्स लाईक अ ब्लॉक, अँड सो दे आर कॉल्ड ॲज block mountains. Now what is the peculiarity of this type of mountains? Such a landform is known as a block mountain. The hilltops of block mountains are flat. Can you see here in this picture? The tops of such mountains are flat. They are not curvy or with peaks. In the early stages they do not have any peaks. Can you see any peak over there? Peak means what? शिखर or curvy places, उंचवटे असतात डोंगरावर, that is called peak. Their slopes are steep. Slope, see here the slope. हा जो कडा आहे तो किती steep आहे, just see. तीव्र उताराचे असतात. We cannot climb easily up on that mountain or climb down easily from that mountain. Fine. So they are very steep. For example, Black Forest Mountain in Europe. In India also, the Meghalaya Plateau of India. This is the Meghalaya Plateau of India. It's very large and vast. In the picture, it seems to be very small, but actually it's very vast. And see the steep slope of that mountain. This is block mountain. What is it called? Block mountain. So block mountains means when the part is lifted upside. It becomes block mountain, and when folds are created due to high pressure, they are called as fold mountains. Fine. Now one more activity is given to you. Let's see what is it. Take 3 notebooks of the same size. Fine, same size. Hold them on tightly on a table, keeping a distance of 2 to 3 centimeters in between. Remove the 2 notebooks on each end away from central one and observe what happens. Draw the diagram emerging because of the notebooks in your own notebook. Fine. And what is the impact of this activity? When horizontal movements on the earth's surface act in opposite direction, see here, directions are opposite, it causes tension on the rocks in the earth's crust. When this tension increases, fractures develop in the rocks. Now what happens here? Horizontal movements, okay, parallel movements or straight movements you can say, on the earth's surface act in opposite direction. What is the direction of these movements? Opposite. What causes? It causes tension, and due to tension it breaks. We have seen earlier in the previous activity. So when tension increases, fractures develop in the rocks, and this leads to formation of faults. Consequently, rocks on both the ends slide, and the continuity in the layers of rocks is not found. So whenever layers are formed, layers of anything, if there is not continuity, the layers are not found, because these faults, these breakages. So the next part of this study, that is rift valleys, how do rift valleys form, and then continent building movements, that is eperogenic movements and sudden movements. These all things we are going to study in the next part of our video, that is in the next video next week. Fine students, so today we have seen which landforms take place on the surface of the earth due to the internal movements, due to slow movements, due to pressure, due to tension. What all things happen on the surface of the earth, we have seen them in detail. The rest of the part of the lesson we are going to study in the next week. Till then, study this one, read the lesson once again clearly, and then try to understand the lesson. Fine students, thank you, and hope that you all are studying nicely this geography subject. Okay, so till the next segment, thank you and bye.